Thank you for visiting my poster. My name is Razan Kimire. I am cropping system specialist and associate professor at New Mexico State University. I'm going to talk today about the regulation of soil organic carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas emissions in semi-arid cropping systems. We all know that greenhouse gas emissions, global warming potential, and climate change has been a major threat for agricultural sustainability in recent years. Globally, agriculture sector can contribute 10 to 12% of greenhouse gas emissions, and specifically more than 50% of anthropogenic non-CO2 greenhouse gas emissions. And if we look at the soil into the picture, soil can be source or sink of greenhouse gas emission depending on our management practices and environmental conditions. So this poster basically talks about management and environmental factor interaction to result into greenhouse gas emissions or soil carbon sequestration. So for this study, we selected two ongoing experiments at Agriculture Science Center, Clovis. The first experiment is about irrigated cropping system. On this, we have 3 different cover crop compared with fallow in corn and sorghum rotation. The second experiment is about tillage and cover crop interaction in a dry land condition. We measured soil organic carbon, measured soil organic carbon components, CO2 emissions and N2O emissions from irrigated and dry land cropping systems. Result from this study show that greenhouse gas emissions is not very different between cropping systems, both in dry land and irrigated condition. When in irrigated cover cropping condition, the net greenhouse gas emissions was not very different between fallow and cover crop treatments, because the cover crop phase of those cover treatments had a negative flux during cover crop phase, and then almost like comparable N2O emissions during main crop phase. And when it comes to looking at the tillage effect, the response was variable, because in dry land condition makes greenhouse gas estimation more challenging. With the intermittent rain, the flux were higher at some point, so interannual variability is higher than treatment responses. But also, we also noticed, we measured soil temperature, air temperature, soil moisture, and then look at their relationship on both carbon dioxide and nitrous oxide emission. You can see there is a linear positive response between greenhouse gas emissions and soil environmental factors like temperature and moisture. And then another, from the dryland study, when we look at that response, we see there is an interesting trend that respiration or specifically CO2 emission is checked around 32 to 35 degrees Celsius. So that is, literature suggests that is the temperature where you see microbial activity is closed. Our study shows microbial activity does not stop there, but maybe a different kind of bacteria will be active in different temperature range. When we look at soil organic carbon, we could see a minimum tillage or no tillage practice. Strip tillage and no tillage practice have higher soil organic carbon content. And when we added cover crop biomass, cover cropping practice in those treatments, the cover cropping further increased carbon sequestration and improved overall soil health. So with that, we can say, the management selection could affect soil health, both in irrigated and semi-arid, non-irrigated conditions. So management-driven change are dependent on the environmental factors like soil moisture content and then the soil temperature, because pretty much physiological activity ceases after 30 degrees C. With that, I would like to thank